Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Hopelessly Gifted podcast. I'm your host, Mark Talaga. All right. As always, I'm excited. I'm excited about who our guest is. I'm excited about the topic we're going to talk about. And I'm excited that you might walk away learning something today, which I think you will. So, the idea we want to explore is something that we've all heard about: mind body connection, right? The idea that our mind influences how our body acts and that our body influences how our mind acts. And this is a super important thing because there's a tendency in the world of gifted neurodivergence to really focus on the mind, how people are thinking, their psychology, their ability to tap into their mind. And I believe, and maybe this is a bias and maybe I'm wrong, that we start to lose the physiology of the individual, and it's possibly just as, if not more important. And so today we have Jen Bluske with us. Jen is an occupational therapist and parent coach who has been in practice with children and families for over 20 years. She's the owner of Children's Therapy Network, a private therapy clinic in Madison, Wisconsin, and Thriving Parents Collective, which provides parent training and coaching throughout the Midwest. Jen is also the host of the podcast Where They're Planted, where she discusses a variety of topics related to occupational therapy with children and parenting through the lens of supporting our children by truly seeing their uniqueness. Jen is passionate about integrating the knowledge that our body provides to our learning and development, as well as how the parent-child relationship can be key in supporting felt safety and autonomy for children. Jen is the mom of 2 adoptive children, and in her free time enjoys digging in the dirt and exploring nature. Welcome, Jen.
Good to be here. Thanks.
All right. So, yes, I want to tap into your expertise as an occupational therapist, but again, we can go anywhere with your experience. But, when you think of this idea of mind-body connection, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah. I think at its most basic, from my perspective, it's that our sensations that come up through our body, our felt sense, can and does inform how we think about things. It informs decision making. And that felt sense, that what comes up from us from a sensation perspective, is powerful and is important to having a full experience and really living in autonomy.
And where do you feel that people maybe struggle to have that awareness or make that connection?
Yeah, I think it happens in a few ways. With the kids I work with, sometimes they come to me without having a clear understanding that it's even happening for them, right? So in infancy up through toddlerhood, everything is sensation, everything is big feelings and big emotions, and that's how it's supposed to happen developmentally. And in that developmental process, the ability to really start to understand, for example, understand the sensation of hunger, right?
Hmm.
Happens in, around 2, 2, 3. The sensation of, ow, I hurt my finger, pops up. But there's also the sensations of, ooh, I have butterflies in my tummy, right? That starts as a physiological chemical reaction in our bodies. And what I notice with some of the kids that I work with is those early cues are missed. And so by the time it comes up through the brain, up through the brainstem, up into the amygdala, up into the places that where we're going to respond, it's so big and it's so intense, and it is disconnected from potentially what caused it or the
Hmm.
cue of what is happening for us. And so with the kids I work with, it's almost like either the connections aren't clear or the connections are shut off a little bit.
So, on one level, we want these kids to be able to contextualize these sensations, what they are, where they come from, have some language for them, so that by the time they hit, the amygdala in the brain, it's not just boom, overloaded, and I'm going to have a meltdown,
Yeah.
ideally, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And even more so, I want in occupational therapy, I want the step before the language. I want the
Mm.
step of, we're not going to talk about it. We're just going to sit in this. We're going to feel this. We're going to move through it without the processing of it. Sometimes is where I find that brain body connection sometimes can get a little stuck, right? We can think about it, but we can't just feel it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's interesting because even me, who's, a professional in this world,
Mm-hmm.
jumped, right? I jumped to, well, let's explain it. Let's just say what it is. And then we're good, right? But you're saying, no. We got to slow things down and we have to feel these feelings. So talk about why that's as important as it is.
It's important because if we work to always explain things away or explain and process through things, it almost can become an escape valve of not having to actually feel it. And what I find in my sensory work is that when we go straight up to cognitive, we miss a lot of it, and there's some fear. There's some trying to run away from it a little bit, right? And when we're really thinking brain body connection, gosh, our body gives us a lot of really important information that we need to maybe be okay with.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And learn to sit with, because I mean, look, we're talking with gifted people right now. We're talking with the kings and queens of escaping into their head and using their analysis ability to try to understand and work through something. So, yes, for kids as well, but I know there's a lot of adults out there that we could probably, if you look inward and say, I tend to maybe not sit in my feelings and sit and say, okay, what is going on with me? And what is this feeling? And can I identify it? And can I be okay with it? And then maybe put the analysis in place.
Got it. And it's interesting because I feel strongly, societally, all of us as adults, that idea of sitting in those sensations that happen in our bodies is kind of pushed out of us. I mean, who's got time to sit with, I'm really frustrated at my child because they wouldn't put their shoes on because I got to get to work.
Right.
Right. So I'm going to ignore those sensations. I'm going to move on. I'm going to be like, well, that was a hard morning and now I'm going to go to work. And the power of being able to soothe ourselves in the sensations is where my passion is in this piece and in this process.
Well, as you're talking, I feel like you've unlocked something for yourself in this. So this experience where you found power in the idea of doing that for yourself. Can you say more about that?
Yeah. So when we're really looking at nervous system development, right, and we're really looking at how do we quote unquote regulate through our day, part of the foundations of that is felt safety and self-soothing. There are many ways to do that, right? There's some cognitive ways, there are relational ways to do that. The way that we do that within our body, in our sensations that come up from our body, is to be able to eventually, I mean, it should happen sort of without thought, but is to understand like this is uncomfortable, and then gosh, what can I do with my body that makes me feel a little bit more comfortable? So an example might be, I'm feeling really anxious. I might rock back and forth. Right? What do we do with babies when they're right? We rock them and we bounce them. This is early development stuff that we're thinking about. We might do that for ourselves before we go to, what am I going to do about the fight that I just had with my spouse, right? I'm feeling uncomfortable in my body. I need to respond directly to my body and soothe it. And that is what we do through our sensory systems, right? Our sensory systems is what provides that for us.
Right. And so we're paying attention to first the uncomfortability, the idea that my body is not in a very regulated state. And being able to recognize that comes with its own challenges, right?
Exactly.
Life moves fast.
Yep.
and it comes at us in intense ways. So again, being able to recognize that would maybe be step one.
Yep, it's absolutely somewhat, and really, it's the slowing down, right? It's the slowing down, or having somebody hold the space for you to slow down,
right? Or even recognizing you're the type of person that has that tendency. Just having that awareness of yourself in that way. Okay, I gotcha. And then the actual act of regulating. I can remember when I was in grad school, I had a friend of mine who I was talking, and I had zero awareness that I was as anxious as I was. And she grabbed me by the shoulders. She lifted my shoulders up and then kind of like shut them down. like just kind of like, huh, like just to relieve the tension in my neck. She goes, how do you feel now? And I'm like, whoa, like,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't even notice that. And so it was just this really opening experience of like, I can manipulate before I solve a problem. I can
Yeah.
manipulate my body because I have control there to start to say, okay, what does this need? I think that's a huge piece that a lot of people miss.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. Obviously, I work with kids on this. And I find that my kids who are gifted, right, because their processing and their cognition works so well for them that I really have to extra work on this with my gifted
Mm,
kids, right? Because like, why would I not think about it? Because I can think about everything really well, right? But I find also that as I'm working on this with my kids, I end up working on this with my parents
mm,
because it really starts with the parent being able to exactly see like, ooh, our bodies are kind of they're tight or they're fidgety or they're not breathing or fill in the blank, and to be able to do that for themselves, which is a tool to help
right.
children be able to do it. Mm-hmm.
Right. The old, put your oxygen mask on first before you put it on your kids, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And again, I think, I can remember being as a gifted kid, this idea of, somebody trying to, what it felt like is somebody's trying to force me to talk about my feelings, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm sad. So what?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it important I feel my feelings?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously now I have an answer for that. But for you, what do you feel like you would want to tell a child or even a parent of, well, okay, I'm angry. So what? Or I'm sad. So what? Why do I need to feel that?
Mm-hmm. The way I like to explain it is we're just learning about our body. I don't even, a lot of times I don't even go to the emotion words.
Oh,
We're just
interesting.
learning about our body. And gosh, I'm noticing like you're curling up in a ball and you're super fidgety. Huh. Usually the child will give me some verbal explanation, which I won't engage truthfully. Often I
Hmm.
don't engage it. I'm just like, I wonder if this is going to feel good. With children, I just talk about, can this feel good? Does this feel
Wow.
better? And I'm going to provide body based activities until I see the response of feel better.
Wow.
Now we can turn on brain of like, what was that about? Because we've already rode the stress wave, we've already
Hmm.
rode through it. Our bodies has had a chance to practice what it feels like to do a body based activity as opposed to just a cognitive based activity. Then we can connect them. Then we can connect body and brain together once we've had some sensational shift.
Man,
And
you
so
are,
I
oh,
don't
this is great.
necessarily talk about the feelings. I mean, I'm going to honor them. Of course, I'm going to honor feelings that come out verbally, obviously. But I am going to stay to how does this feel?
Yeah.
Like, where's your body feel like? Give me some emotion. Give me some, not emotion words. Give me some sensation words. Or I'm just going to stay
Yeah.
quiet.
And I just, the idea, I don't know, this is blowing my mind because again, it's expanding our awareness of, you know, how to solve problems in a sense. Like it's just slowing things down to such a cool, manageable, foundational level that I think a lot of parents could really benefit from this. Cause like what I'm getting from this is, the idea that we can help a child understand something like that's a forced choice. Is this better or worse? Or maybe the same, right? And let's move our body. Let's have control over that. Let's get out of the cognitive entirely. We don't need to label things. We don't need to analyze things. We're just moving. And do you
Mm-hmm.
see how that creates a change or not a change, makes it better or worse? And what a foundational piece for anybody to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah.
So, and with parents, we put it in like a real life scenario. Let's say we've got a teenager that's, unable to do what they're supposed to be doing. They're not doing their homework. Parents are getting angry. Child's getting defensive and angry. And we need to slow that process down. How would you guide somebody through this fictional scenario of what they could be doing with their bodies first?
Yeah, it's a pretty common one I run up against. Yeah. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to have the parent can really connect in with the child and create some understanding of how their sensing. I'm not going to say feeling because I don't want the feeling words. How they're sensing right now. So like, gosh, how was your day? Like, I'm noticing that you're like curled up in a little ball. Do you need like something cozy over you right now? Um, I'm noticing that you're, really jumping around a lot. Do we need to get outside and go for a walk before I even start in on homework? Right. I'm just talking directly to the body. I'm not like, okay, we're going to need to do homework in 10 minutes. And, how are we going to break it down? What are we going to do? I'm going to start by just connecting in.
Hmm.
When I see a shift, I'm going to label that shift. Wow, I'm noticing that you're talking a little bit more, little slower, or a little quieter, or I'm noticing that you just took a huge, big, deep breath.
Hmm.
I wonder if now might be easier to try homework, right? So I'm going to connect. This just happened with your body. I wonder if there's a shift for you now. Then when I get the pushback of I'm not doing homework, right? It's not
Right.
happening. I won't do it. I'm going to get really curious about what is needed. Like, what does your
Hmm.
body need to be able to do this? Is it too overwhelming? Is it like you can't focus? Like, what do you need right now inside? Oftentimes kids don't know when we just start there. So we have to do some of that work of sort of like feeding some of the sensations before, so that there's some understanding. And then I'm going to teach parents about co-regulation. Like, how do we co-regulate with the kids in order to just give them our nervous system for a little while until they can do it themselves.
Right. And so what does that mean then to co-regulate for a parent? What would that look like?
In the homework scenario, right, where there's this butting of wills, it's what co-regulating looks like is first parent gets regulated, right? We need to be in a felt safety place, right? Usually when our child isn't doing homework, we're escalating ourselves a little bit because it's frustrating. We need to be in a place of felt safety. We need to be in a place of knowing that where our end goal is. And I'll be really honest with me, it's usually not that we're going to get this homework done, it's that we're going to help our child learn how to do homework eventually.
Hey, pay attention, parents. That was key, what Jen just said. It is not getting them to do it. It is helping them understand why it's a challenge, or, can we even talk about it? That was good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And learning what we need to be able to sit down and do it.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get ourselves calm. Then what we're going to do is we're going to join. We're going to join our kids. And so, right, if we've got a kiddo who's very like lethargic and not wanting to move and get up, I'm not going to come in a co-regulating way is not to come in, let's go, keep going, we got to do it, right? That is just going to shut our child down more. I'm
Right.
going to join, and that means I might sit quietly next to them for a minute. I might stop talking for a minute.
Hmm.
I might honor, like, whew, you're really sleepy. This homework might feel really tricky right now, right? I'm talking directly again to their body. Like, pay attention to your body. Pay attention to your body. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I imagine in those moments for a lot of parents, the idea of, I need to join with them. I need to just be with them and where they are at. There is a unconscious or conscious tension, a tension that is felt by parents of, I need to do something here. And maybe they're missing the fact that they are doing something with that co-regulation. Would you say that's fair?
They're absolutely doing something with the co-regulation. They're helping their child be able to understand what their body is saying.
Mm.
That is what the co-regulation is doing, because they're modeling. They're right. There's something called mirror neurons, right? My
Mm-hmm.
body will respond based on what your body is doing. That's a science-backed thing that happens. And so if I can join my child at their regulation state and then do shifts in my own body to maybe rev up a little bit so that I can be ready for homework, my child is going to come along 9 times out of 10. My child's body is going to shift. So again, we're talking directly to the body. None of this needs to happen with words.
Oh, I love this. This is huge because, again, you're expanding, yes, a tool set for parents, but an understanding of things that very intelligent, gifted people, or just people that are more thinky,
Mm-hmm.
tend to miss. And I can almost sense from some parents, there's like an uncomfortability about paying attention to the body or utilizing the body or shaping or shifting the body, whether it's themselves or their kids. Do you find that to be true with some?
Absolutely.
Okay, I thought so.
Absolutely. There's a vulnerability to it because there isn't, right? You can't explain it necessarily. Our body does what it does. Mm-hmm.
hmm And again, paying attention to the fact that we are physical beings,
Yeah.
and that's a big part of who we are, and checking in with that. Yeah, I could see a lot of people maybe not paying a lot of homage to that or giving it a lot of credit or as much as it might need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's even, when we think about the brain body connection, there's even how movement can support regulation, right? So, how are we using rhythm? How are we
Mm.
using motor transitions in order to help our mind be able to transition? So, we can use movement in order to sort of support some of the executive function cognitive processes that might feel a little stuck
Give me an
sometimes.
example of that. That's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So, one thing that I classically do with most of my parents, especially my really gifted kids who really want to like think and process, and do a lot of talking, is I will do simple ball bouncing. Parent child, tennis ball, bounce the ball back and forth. Simple activity. But what happens within that is it creates rhythmicity, right? So the rhythmicity of staying together, it creates synchronicity between parent and child.
Mm.
Um, it creates the parent being able to shift the rhythm and the child potentially being able to follow. Um, it creates the ability, if I give it sort of a little bit more complexity, there's transitions that must happen, but it's through movement, right? It's through
Mm.
rhythm and movement. And so the ability to practice transition, especially transition between parent and child, is easier when I do something movement based as opposed to um, something more cognitive based or more routine based.
So the activation of the body and putting it in movement allows it to better handle some more cognitive or emotional transitions. Is that what I'm
It's
hearing?
practice. It's practice for
Okay.
it. It's another way in that sometimes can be a little bit easier because we
Okay.
have the motor system supporting us.
Right. And what I found with a lot of clients that I work with, if it's a particularly nice day outside and my client is feeling rather, I don't know, stuck, or they're kind of in a cloud. They're not sure what they want to talk about or what they should talk about. I'm like, let's go for a walk. Let's
Yeah.
walk and talk.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I know that biambulatory movement can activate the brain and things like this, but I don't know, just the idea of being in a different scenario, activating in a different way tends to maybe unlock things.
You got it. Yep, you got it.
Yeah.
I mean, in our clinic, we have swings and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating that when I get sort of, oftentimes a teenager who's sort of growly, in their, I don't want to be here. I
Yeah.
don't want to do anything. Get them on a swing, get some of that big rhythm, that big vestibular input, how everything sort of falls. And I get sort
Mm.
of an openness that
Oh,
happens. Mm-hmm.
that's fascinating. Now, I think a lot of parents, at least that I've talked to in my experience, they they have a sense of, the body is important to, nurture and develop. And so I want my kid to exercise. My kid, these are probably more teens or young
Sure.
adults, but they should be exercising. And I've explained them they should be exercising, and they're not exercising. And I'm just curious, like when you hear something like that, how do you react as an OT? What do you do with that?
Well, what brings them joy? A,
Mm-hmm.
is there, right? What kind of movement brings joy? Sometimes it's not much because I don't feel competent in my body.
Uh-huh.
It's another theme I see, right? Especially for our really, really gifted kids. Either they just haven't developed the competence or there's some like motor stuff going on. Um, if you don't feel competent in your body, you don't want to move your body, especially if
Mm.
you feel really competent in other areas of life.
Right.
And so I tend to do a lot of breaking it way down, like way,
Got
way,
it.
way down. Exercise becomes, can you roll on your tummy on a ball while you're watching your favorite show?
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, isn't that interesting? The idea of just going to this micro level skill of can we introduce movement into something you're already doing? So maybe a lot of my kids, they're all gamers. They love playing games and having like a big exercise ball that they're sitting on rather than their super comfy gamer chair. All of a sudden we have a little bit of movement. We have a little bit of awareness in the body. Oh, I think that's great.
Yeah. Or those, any balance, there's all sorts of balance things out there, but any like
Yeah.
balance wiggle cushion or anything like that,
Yeah.
that you can do while you're gaming,
Right.
introduces some competence in movement to the body.
Right. Well, and what you're talking about again is a big important piece is there's such a vulnerability for a lot of people who are talented, capable, able, but when it comes to their own physique or body or muscle tone or whatever, they feel very insecure, very sensitive. And I always try to remind people that if you have a lot of vulnerability about how your body performs, it might mean that you have an enormous amount of potential to develop it. But because you feel so far behind or you're not where you want to be, it can feel like this thing that you never want to deal with. But I like what you're doing with it, where it's like anything you build. You need a foundation, you need an awareness, you need to start with knowing, hey, this is going to be slow and steady, but anything can be helpful in starting to, deal with that body.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
What feels good, right?
Yeah.
Exercise should, it's hard, but it should feel good. And so can we find just a movement that feels okay?
Absolutely. Like you're not getting me running. I'm not doing it.
Right,
I'm not you know what I mean? I'm not a cardio guy. Like I get it, but I would much rather do different kinds of movements in the gym than that. And maybe that's okay, right?
And that is just fine, right? Can we just move and feel okay in our bodies? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then again, I'm always keeping parents in mind where, a child will say, well, I do movement. I had one kid say, I go up and down the stairs like 5 times a day. And a parent just has this, that is not enough. That is not enough. And so it creates this, the parents struggling with that in the kid. Have you seen that before?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. Again, I'm going to go back to what do you feel after you walk up and down the stairs 5 times?
There you go.
Is your heart pounding? Are your legs tired? Right? I'm going to get some information from the child. I'm going to see if they've even tuned into that. Maybe they're like, yeah, my legs are tired for the next 2 hours. Well, that's information, right?
Right.
That's great information. Or it's, I don't really like to move and I had to walk up and down the stairs anyway at school. And then I might get curious, like, gosh, when you're walking up and down the stairs, can you jump up the stairs? Is that possible? Right?
Oh,
especially if they're a little younger. What would happen if you jump up the stairs? Is it doable? Well, now I've just introduced complexity. I've introduced increased movement, and again, focus on the body and what it feels like to move. So that's how I typically approach it. Is I just get super curious about what it's doing.
Well, and I love it because the intention, there's no expectation that they need to accomplish something or, well, they need to be in the gym 3 times a day. My intention is getting curious. Your intention is to get curious with them and then help expand outward a little bit. It doesn't need to be much, but even that conversation opener is something that puts it into, we're continually saying the body is important and we do need to look at it and integrate it in, but we have no expectation that it needs to be done in a certain way. But we as parents are going to stay rooted in our foundation that it matters, and let's just stay curious about it. I think that's great.
The other thing I might give parents, where they're really hoping their kids have more movement is, for some families, it will work where, the parent is able to have the child join in some things, right? Can you join me? We're going to walk to XYZ place. Right. It's sort of like a little sideways way to get extra movement in without talking about, all right, we got our exercise in today.
Right. 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 Removing the demand, the expectation, the pressure, but allowing the child to join. It's a with thing, as always. Yeah.
With activity.
I like that. Find these with activities. I think that's really great. But then again, that puts a little challenge on the parents because they have to look inward. Am I doing
Oh, it's
You
hard,
know?
right?
Yeah, right. Hold on now. I have to do another thing. Well, maybe.
It's like asking our kids to be off screens, but we want our, our 45
Yeah,
minutes after. Yeah.
right.
It's
Oh
so
my gosh.
hard.
It's funny. I'm going through that currently with my kids because our morning, like my wife and I both can tell they're not checking in with their bodies. They don't know their hunger level. They don't know this because, recently we're like, yes, you can go on your little iPads in the morning while mom and dad have our morning coffee and chill. But we have seen the challenges of that transition point of now we have to go to school, or the second that screen goes off, they get flooded with a bunch of sensory signals in their
Yeah.
body
Yeah.
of I'm hungry, I'm nervous about school, I'm this, I'm that. That was just not conscious.
Yep.
And it's so we've had to remove it. We've had to say, well, we just
Yeah.
can't do it because they're not there yet. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So think about that, parents. Sometimes it's the body piece that you need to pay attention to when trying to do something with screens, not, oh, it's bad for you and this, that, and the other.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So, as worked with parents over the years, you've also created a space for parents to come in, this collective that you've created. Talk to me about the Thriving Parents Collective.
Sure. So, I've been doing occupational therapy for 20 some years, and in that work realized that, man, I need to really be able to talk directly to parents here. I'm understanding how the parent-child relationship can really be the conduit to creating the shift that we're looking for in the kids. And so, don't get me wrong, the direct work with the kids is important, but because of the power of the relationship, I'm finding that I can do the work just directly with the parents. And
Mm,
so became a parent coach with a strong focus on sort of brain-based nervous system attachment focus. And so our work at Thriving Parents Collective is parent coaching, parent training, specifically for parents who might be parenting a child who's neurodivergent,
mm-hmm.
just has a unique profile in some way, um, and really using their own nervous system, their own understanding of their attachment and their um, being parented in order to shift what they're able to provide for for their kids in their parenting. And so we're just finding it really powerful work to be able to kind of go from the foundation up um,
Yeah.
with kids. Mm-hmm.
To use yourself, to have a parent feel empowered enough to use their own sense of self and emotions and feelings and their body regulation and the relationship that they have with their children, that's important work. And that is what I want for every parent to be able to, you know, learn how to do even better than you maybe already do. Now, do you, is this an in-person thing? Is this online? Is this, what kind of communities does this look like?
Yeah, so our parent coaching work is all virtual. So
Hmm.
right, it can happen no matter where you are in the country. Our full program is 12 sessions. We do 12 sessions. There's a loose curriculum, but it's very individualized. And what I like about it is it starts with a lot of self-reflection. So it sort of takes you back of like, all right, where did you come? How did you come into parenting? Is this how you want to do the parenting? Yes or no,
Hmm.
maybe. Um, your own default patterns, right? What happens for you when you're stressed? What happens for you when you're overwhelmed? Then moves into just a lot of content starting with nervous system regulation. And I'll be really honest, that's the key
Yeah.
for our parents. It's a 12-week program, and we start early talking about nervous system, and it's usually about week 9 or 10 where parents are like, oh, this is starting to click, this nervous system piece for myself, and how it impacts my child. And then we talk through the like how that connects then to emotion, right? Again, what we talked about at
Yeah.
the beginning, body sensation. um, and off of that, we've got some other individual trainings and some group trainings that we do, and we're developing more as we go.
Oh, how cool. Well, I would say for any parent out there that maybe tends to lean towards the idea of, yeah, I like parent coaching or I like more support, but maybe you're over relying on the cognitive. Maybe you're over relying on learning, information, technique. What if you challenged yourself to embrace a more neurosystem focused emotional work? And possibly that could be the missing piece for you. So I just think, Jen, that you're offering such a wonderful service. And I would encourage, any parents out there who maybe say, I haven't really done that for myself. And maybe that's part of the reason that we don't have as much stability as we want in our home with our children, to explore that with you. I think that's a great service.
Yeah, thank you.
And we can also find you on your own podcast, right? Which I got to join and had a wonderful time on, and Where They're Planted. Tell people a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, so my podcast just really grew out of my love of teaching and supporting parents. And so the idea is that we're looking at all realms of child development and occupational therapy work, as well as parenting. I've delved more into parenting the last many episodes, really through the lens of first honoring our kids and where they are, right? Let's start where they are and sort of not jump to where they need to be, but let's start where they are, and really deeply understand that, have compassion and curiosity for it as the tool for creating development, change, and autonomy.
Oh, Where They're Planted. Now, I mean, that hits hard when you're putting it in that context. I was like, yeah, okay. I like where that's coming from. That's really great. Well, Jen, I can't thank you enough for jumping on the show and sharing your expertise with parents. Where can people find you? How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can find my occupational therapy work. They can find me at Children's Therapy Network. And I think you'll have the link in the show notes. And then for the parent coaching work, they can find us at Thriving Parents Collective.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Jen, for being part of this today. And thank you all out there who are listening. And until next time, this has been the Hopelessly Gifted Podcast. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.